Hi, I'm Amy Wilkins, leadership coach, former media exec, and your host of Thriving in the Messy Middle. This is a space for women leaders navigating those in between seasons, the moments when things feel uncertain, stretched, or messy, and you're trying to find your footing without losing yourself. Some episodes are conversations with remarkable women leaders sharing the lessons they've learned along the way. And other times, it's just you and me, slowing things down and naming what's really going on. Think of this as a place to reset, reflect, and reconnect with what matters most. Because thriving isn't about having it all figured out. It's about learning how to grow, lead, and move forward, even when things feel messy. I am so excited about today's guest. Our guest today is Mita Malik, and she is a Wall Street Journal, USA Today, and LA Times best-selling author. Mita is on a mission to fix what's broken in our workplaces. Her most recent book, The Devil Emails at Midnight: What Good Leaders Can Learn from Bad Bosses, tackles head-on how bad bosses aren't born, bad bosses are made. Mita is a corporate change maker with a track record of transforming businesses. She's a highly sought after advisor and speaker who has advised Fortune 500 companies and startups alike. She's a LinkedIn top voice and a contributor to Harvard Business Review, Fast Company, Adweek, and Entrepreneur. So, this conversation about messy middle moments, identity, and the belief that leadership is something we can continue to grow into even when we get it wrong. So, Mita, welcome to the podcast. I'm so glad you're here.
Thank you so much for having me. And thank you for that amazing introduction. I would say the most important thing that I'm doing right now and most top of mind is trying to raise kind and inclusive human beings, which I know many of us can relate to. And I'm sure many a generation before us said, this is the most difficult time to be raising children. But I certainly do feel that right now. And it's very top of mind for me. I'm obsessed with the power of storytelling. I have the power to change hearts and minds. And I think that's important now more than ever in our current environment that we're living.
I love your book.
Oh, thank you so much.
There's so many pieces throughout the book where I was like, "Ooh, there I am."
There we
And
are.
yeah, there I am. And what I was excited too about was, oh, and I learned something because I didn't do that the next
Mhm.
time. So I thought that was like, oh yeah, we can learn how to be
Yes.
good bosses. So I would love to have you share a messy moment in your journey that was particularly challenging and what it looked like to navigate through it.
Many messy moments, but the two that come to mind that I think many women will relate to and struggle with is this idea that grew up in a household where I knew education was the golden ticket and education would bring opportunity. I always wanted to be a leader, and I never thought that becoming a mother would change people's perception of me in the workplace. So both leaves that I took, parental leaves for both my son and daughter, which I talk about in different ways in both books, I was punished for being pregnant, the motherhood penalty, the fatherhood premium, all of that playing out. And I wanted to do both things well, and I still want to do both things. That doesn't mean that I have balance every day. I don't. But at the end of my life, I want to say that I was a great mother, great wife, great partner, great leader. I did all of these things well. And yet somehow, at least I know it's my experience and the experience of many women, you become a mother and all of a sudden you're viewed differently in the workplace. I always joke, my husband in the same relationship, married with 2 children. He's had children and he is seen as more ambitious, more committed. He's attracting money and opportunities, the fatherhood premium, fatherhood bonus, and I'm a disheveled mess. Why am I wanting that promotion? Who's going to take care of my kids? I should be with them. If you're here, who's raising your children? A stranger? All the things we've heard and the questions that men don't get. And I know not every woman becomes a mother and there's caregiving in all sorts of forms. But those two moments I go back to in terms of my personal life and my work life colliding and those messy moments.
Yeah. And how did it inform how you moved through those moments?
It was tough because I had my cultural upbringing as well. I'm the proud daughter of Indian immigrant parents. So that tension of, and we're all raised with stereotypes, whether we realize it or not. And I think you're seeing this more and more in the marketplace of the tension of where is a woman's place? Wow, I just said it, right? Where is a woman's place?
Thank you for
Right? And so
saying it.
that
Yeah.
tension, right? And how we're raised and the expectations of women versus men and how that shows up. And I always say, whatever's happening at our conference room table is happening at our kitchen table. It's a mirror, right? We don't leave these ideas at home and then all of a sudden show them the workplace is a different person. We just don't.
Yeah.
And so for me, it was the exhaustion of constantly advocating for myself, constantly having to make sure that I had those points on the board and also hiding things that I shouldn't have to hide. That if my child was sick all night and I drove, embarrassed to say, on 4 hours of sleep, which by the way is similar to I've seen studies if you're under the influence of alcohol, right? The parents not sleeping, you're driving to work, you're masking, pretending none of these things are happening because you know it's going to be held against you. And so I always said to myself, when I became more senior, when I had more power and privilege in the workplace, I was going to role model those things.
Yeah.
And I remember at one company I worked at, it was a US based company. I'm in the East Coast, it was West Coast. I purposely put on my calendar dinner with my kids 5 to 6 every night. And I put that on the calendar for everyone to see. Not that every night I would be able to do that because it is a global company in different time zones, but to role model that this is something important to me. And I'm going to try to do this at least a few times a week. And that's what I always said to myself when I was in a position, I would talk about it, like I'm talking about it with you, but I would also role model in the workplace so that we could make it a different experience for the people who come after us.
So important to be able to make sure people know that it's okay. I think about that like around vacations.
Yeah.
Take your vacation because if you don't take it, people around you think, I guess we're not supposed to take
Or if you
vacations.
take the vacation, listen, I've been the notorious, I'm the boss on vacation, but emailing constantly and working. I've done that. I've done that for years and I had to unlearn it. And I had a team member who said to me, you're on vacation, but you email, you're still working. What signal does that send to the team? So if you're going to take vacation, you actually have to take it. And that's not to say that there's not a crisis or an emergency comes up, but if you're still on your vacation working every day, then it's not a vacation.
It's so true. And it's a missed leadership training opportunity when we go away and we say, oh, you guys got this. And I know that you're going to text me if there's
Yes,
something that's
there's a yeah,
blowing up.
yes.
Right. And all of a sudden they're like handling things. And you're like, wow,
This
everybody's
is why I hired
capable of
the
handling.
team. Yeah,
That's
this is why I
right.
hired
That's
them.
right.
Yeah.
Let me empower the people.
Yes,
And
yes.
yeah, one of the things that you talk about in the book is naming those experiences that we don't say out loud. Can you, and you just shared one, but are there other examples of that you can share that are things that we hold inside, we're not saying?
I would talk about the chapter that I wrote in the book that was probably the second time publicly, and now thousands of people have read it. So the second time that I was like, okay, I'm going to do this and put it in the book, which is the story of my name. And even as I sit here and talk to you, I have some shame associated with it. I cringe about it. My kids hate when I say cringe. I cringe about it. I have shame and hurt, but why should I be ashamed of this? So my full name is Mother Mita Malik, and for all the reasons you would suspect, it's been a source of joy, shame, pride. And so for much of my life, I went by Mita because it was easier for other people. And I was taught to put other people's comfort in front of my own. So it was Mita. And I ended up leaving graduate school. I was very excited, joined really exciting big company, had a great title. And I decided to reclaim Mother Mita as my name as I entered the workforce again. And so many people told me not to do it. So I did it. And I ended up working for, and you'll know because you read the book, the sheriff. And I nickname everyone in my book for a reason and on purpose, but he is the sheriff. I'm working for him. And he decides that he cannot learn how to pronounce Mother Mita. He won't call me Mita, and he renames me Muhammad. And Mohammed, get the sales samples. Mohammed, are you coming to lunch? Mohammed, The agency is here. Can you sign them in? It goes on. And when I tell this story now, many years later, some people react with empathy. Some people react with disbelief. Others react with, why did you let him do that? Why did you let him do that? And there's so much shame associated. And so, what I do include in this chapter in the book is there's a moment, and I remember I'm sitting in his office and I say to him, these weeks have gone by at this point. You can just call me Mita. And he laughs and says, Muhammad's so funny. What's the big deal? What's the big deal? But these are the things we hold on to that we don't say out loud, because the truth is, and I wrote a piece for Entrepreneur Magazine for National Daughter's Day. It was a letter to my daughter. It's the story of the name, which she's too young right now to understand. And someday she'll understand the story and the pain behind it. But here's the truth, Amy. We teach people how to treat us. And that is a really hard thing for me to say out loud, because I can say I was junior. There was risk. I was a people pleaser. I was a target for this individual. But maybe if I could go back to the first moment he called me Muhammad, and I looked him straight in the eyes and I said, it's Mita. Call me Mita. And what might have happened, as we know with bullies, when we stand up to bullies, they go find somebody else, which is the sad part, right? That doesn't solve the problem. But we teach people how to treat us. And that's the thing that I'm now really saying out loud, thinking, wow, many of these moments in my career, I didn't do that, because people will say to me, did you really have all these bad bosses? Is this possible?
You had a
And yes,
lot.
it is, because in some really large public companies, as you go through, you could have 3 bosses in a year. And I would say I also attracted a lot of these individuals because of things that happened in my childhood, how I was raised culturally, how I showed up in the workplace. And so there's both of those things are true.
Yeah, I think this is also the story where you encountered him at a industry
Oh my
event.
God. Yes. You
And
remember, Amy. I'm impressed.
I only because I was horrified by that story, and I could actually feel it in my body,
Yeah.
what you must have felt, even having to be in the same room with him. Just, whew.
And there's probably, there's 3 bosses in the book. He's one of them, where
Mhm.
if I saw them again, I'd have that reaction. And I think I have grown and years have gone by. That trauma is still there, that physical sort of response you have. But because I have healed from it and I have grown, I probably wouldn't leave the event like I did in the book, where it was pretty not, it was within a few years of having
It's too
worked for
raw.
him. It was raw.
Yeah.
It was raw.
Actually, I would love to talk a little bit about that, because one
Sure,
of the
of course.
things I notice with women that I coach is that past experiences show up in the next role, right?
Yes.
Like we
Yes.
come to the next role and we've already start to put on armor. We're wearing some armor, right? And then
Heavy armor.
the armor's getting heavy, and then we actually, in some ways, we actually create the next experience, right? It actually shows up again and we're like,
Yes.
why
What
am I on?
happened?
Yeah, it's like the record
I'm
that's
back
on.
here again.
I'm
Yeah.
like, oh my goodness, how did this happen? So it's so important. What I always explore with them is, what would it look like to just be with the pain of it, through it? Because if you hold on to it and you fight it, including some of the things that you were just saying about feeling like, oh,
Yes.
I should,
Yes.
all those shouldas that you bring into that actually prevent you from being able to say, I'm actually going to just learn from that.
Absolutely.
Right?
And I love that you said move through it. I say the same thing, not move past it. You have
No.
to move through it. And I do feel like actually exploring that part of my career in that incident, I wouldn't say incident doesn't even sum it up. That trauma,
No.
it was also healing writing about it for all of
Yeah. You talk a lot about when you made transitions. And I think, again, that's something that folks can often struggle with. And I think sometimes when it's particularly ugly, whatever
you.
you're
Yes.
dealing with in
Yes.
your work
Yes.
environment, that, and because I can speak myself, like I know I stayed in places longer than I should have when it was particularly ugly. Sometimes because I was like in shock, right? Is
Yes.
this really happening? Is this actually what's going on? But what was the cue, and were they different, that said to you, I got to get out of here?
So I worked for one of my bosses I nicknamed Medusa, and she was the equal opportunity bully. She went after everyone, screamed, yelled, publicly, privately, berated, humiliated, threw a Chanel shoe at a colleague, Mr. Head. And I actually just posted something in social media, which is just we either laugh or cry about these things. And sometimes we have to laugh. But this woman wore a lot of Chanel. And I don't, I, she was making a lot more than I was, but she wore a lot of Chanel and didn't like the Chanel brand for a number of years until I met a very close friend. And I was like, why do I have so much like trauma around Chanel? Not that I'm buying a lot of Chanel items, but this idea that there'd be a Chanel store and I just wore Chanel number 5. Isn't that funny? Like this trauma that we hold on to
That
from
is,
people. You're like, "Oh, like I've
yeah,
certainly associated that brand where they're like the devil wears Prada, devil wears
yeah.
Chanel." She so something that interesting that happened was the downside, the upside and downside of working for a bad boss, which might surprise you. So the downside of working for Medusa might be clear. The upside is that we actually bonded as a team, and it was trauma bonding. We had each other's backs. We only knew the context. We protected each other. We gave each other heads up, all of the things. And we were in the trenches together. The downside is we normalized her behavior. It was a beauty brand. We all had big, fancy titles. We were in it to win it. We were just going to get through this period, but we normalized it. And I'll never forget, Amy, when you're in these situations, you slowly start to disappear and physically and mentally you change. And I remember I hadn't seen 3 friends for a while because I had become socially isolated, right? This job and Medusa and the team was my world. I was trying to survive and I went out with them to dinner. And when you're out with dinner to people with people that are close to you, first they see you and you look different. The light is gone from your eyes, you've lost weight, whatever it might be. You look different. And then you're saying some of these stories and they're speechless because this is not normal, right? And so they were like, this is not normal. And they were the ones who helped me come up with my first get out plan. They all worked at another beauty company. I remember they had me go in for rounds of interviews. It didn't end up working out there, but it started to build my confidence that you don't have to stay here. You're very talented and you should get out. But what's interesting and happens is when you're around people and you all normalize this behavior and you're in it to win it together, you stay longer than you should have. And it was going out of that environment and meeting old friends who were like, "What are you doing? Why are you still here? Why?"
Yeah. Yeah. And that just also tells me something else, right? When we're in those situations, we isolate only with people at work and
Yes.
we stop seeing the people who might be able to say, you might just want to look into that a little bit.
Right.
There's
Yes.
something here. I think that's a lesson, right,
Mm. Yes.
that we can take away from those kinds of experiences. Make sure we're with other people,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
We talked a lot about what can happen with these bad bosses, but what do you think really defines a good boss?
Gosh, that's the million-dollar question we're all chasing. What's a good boss? I think a really good leader, a great leader knows their number one job is to create more leaders, full stop. Your number one job. You are in service of other people. And I don't like the word servant leadership, but I do the word being in service of others. And it is the shift in the paradigm of the pyramid structure where I'm at the top and everyone else is at the bottom. Or think about the classic org chart and how that's even positioned. Imagine if it was a circle, the leaders in the middle and it's a circle. Why can't we think about leadership in that way? And we know all the reasons why that hasn't happened. But it is being in coach mode. I'm athletically challenged. I can run fast and that's about it. But I am fascinated by sports teams and coaches and how people are coached. And it is similar in the workplace. Are you kicking people when they're down? Are you making them feel stupid and terrible when they know they made a mistake they shouldn't have? Are you coaching? Are you teaching? Are you training? Are you lifting them up? Those are I go back through my career of all the good and great leaders I had. That's the difference between a boss and a leader. A boss is just managing where a leader is coaching and guiding.
Absolutely. Yeah, I love that, and empowering, right? People get to
Empowering, absolutely love that word.
yeah,
Ah,
people get to make mistakes. Yeah, and I think that's one of the things when I notice having bosses where you weren't allowed to make a mistake. I
yes,
mean, oh my, it sucks the creativity right out of the room. It puts such a lid on what's possible.
absolutely.
Yeah,
It kills innovation, kills
definitely.
productivity,
Yeah.
all of the things from a business perspective that companies care about. That's why bad bosses are quite costly. And
Oh,
I
yeah.
wish more companies, or I would say companies are made of leaders. I wish the people who were in positions of power would understand that more.
Yeah, and if they did, I'm curious what you think. I don't think enough there's no training for leaders,
No,
right?
I was like, here's your promotion, and now you're in charge of 10 people. I'm like, where's the manual? What do you mean? What do you mean?
Yeah, what does this actually look like? And
Yes.
when I look back too of where I got my greatest amount of learning, it really was often from the worst bosses.
Yes.
Because I remember thinking, I'm never going to do that.
Never gonna do that.
I'm never gonna, and I might have done it a few times, but yeah, not going to do that.
Yes. Yeah.
Earlier, you were talking about how you get to teach people how to treat you.
Yes.
And that was like one of those lessons, one of those things you had to unlearn, like the idea that, oh, I get to teach people how to treat me. But I'm just curious if there's anything else that you had to unlearn way.
There are many things, but one of the things I think a lot about now as the proud daughter of Indian immigrant parents is that my parents gave me a lot of wonderful gifts. And some of them didn't serve me well in corporate America, and some of them did. But the one that my dad, rest in peace, would always say, and I can still hear his voice clear as day, is keep your head down, work hard, you will be recognized, and stay out of trouble. And I always laugh at the stay out of trouble because I was a kid who was scared of her shadow. But it is this idea of the translation of office politics in the workplace. And I do think when I think about my parents coming from India, building their life in the US, they were in survival mode. They didn't know anyone. They were building community. They didn't want to be a target. They didn't want to be visible. Right. And so sometimes we carry that trauma with us, even though we're not in survival mode, but we can act that way. And for me, it was, I'm just going to keep my head down and do really good work and not get involved in office politics, which I don't know how you can be successful in a career in corporate America if you don't get involved in office politics. It's not a dirty word, but I thought for years it was. And it is this idea of how do you make the most out of the relationships that you work with? These are not singular roles, right? You have to be able to collaborate with other people. And so that's something I have gotten better at over time, particularly the art of managing up. I always joke like I've led really big teams and I don't remember what I had for dinner last night. I'm human. I'm not a demigod. And so you are doing your boss, your leader a favor if you're constantly updating them on the things that you're working on. That's so important. But that's one of the things, unlearning this, embracing office politics as a positive and not a negative.
Oh man, that is such great wisdom, and I can relate. I've done the same where I thought, "Oh, this is
Ugh,
just
yeah. Like an
it's
icky
icky."
feeling. Yeah.
Yeah, it's icky, and it has nothing to do with that.
No.
If we yeah, if we put it it's not about gossip. That's not it. It's
Yes.
about, yeah, getting to know your colleagues in a way that can enhance collaboration
Yes. Absolutely.
and move things
Absolutely.
forward. I wanna talk about something that you posted recently,
Sure.
and you talked about the benefits of creating a brag book and
Yes.
you had other words for it, but I'd love you to just
Yeah.
talk a little bit about this.
So this is really interesting. We're in a time where layoffs are a constant normal, and there's been some companies that have announced layoffs and then they've actually asked people to send in their 3 to 5 most proud accomplishments. And I hear that and my stomach drops because you're like, "What?" That is, but what they're doing is, and what they should be doing, and you know this, if you're doing layoffs, there has to be a system, a process. It has to be thought through. And so they are looking at performance and metrics. And so you have to be ready. You have to have a brag book, a rainy day folder, love notes, a Google Doc. I don't know what call it what you want, but it is basically cataloging your wins at work. And so how I like to do it is you can set aside time the last Friday of every month and just have a spreadsheet and just write everything down. And then on a once every 2 months, you'll go back and clean it up. It's easier to have more than less, but it is also important for what we're hearing in the marketplace on layoffs, the brag book. It's also important for you to be able to prepare your leader for performance reviews. It's important to have for a resume and LinkedIn profile. If you don't have your resume updated today, listen to this episode and go do it. And make sure it's not on your work laptop. So, all of those things, but it's important because we have to be in the driver's seat of our career, and go and download your performance evaluation plans, forms. Go and download accolades, the notes people sent you, clients, customers, colleagues, all of those things need to be in one place so you can tell your story of your track record of accomplishments and success.
I think that we forget that our
That's
boss doesn't really know everything we're up to.
yeah.
And so when we wait, especially for those review periods, if we wait for that person to know all of the stuff we've done, we're setting ourselves up.
We are. And also, we forget there's so much happening in our lives in the world. And so then you go down to work on your your self evaluation or your resume, and you're like staring at a blank page, like, I did everything and nothing. I don't remember anything. So
That's
do
right.
yourself a favor and just jot everything down, catalog it. You can then go back and pick and choose what you want to share.
So, any other wisdom that you would like to share with someone who might be going through their own messy moment right now?
This too shall pass. It shall pass. There's a light at the end of the tunnel. But here's what I will say: we have agency, you have power. And sometimes when you're in that downward spiral, you're in a job that you hate your boss, you feel undervalued, you got passed up for a promotion again, all the things that are happening, and you start to just go down that hole, and take that energy and work on a get out plan. Create the plan, work the plan. Are you going to move internally? Are you going to give this 6 months until you finish a project and then leave? Most of us don't have the ability to just resign tomorrow and walk out. So we've got to have a plan and work the plan. But take that energy of anger, disappointment, resentment, use that for good. I give myself a day to get a pint with Ben and Jerry's Chunky Monkey, eat it, feel sorry for myself, get over it. You should you just said, don't you work through the feelings. Process like your disappointment of whatever's happening right now in this messy moment, but work through it and then start to create a plan so you feel like you have, because we have control, we have agency, we have
Yeah.
power over our careers and our lives. Don't forget that.
Anything else that I forgot to ask you that you're like, oh, I'm dying to share this?
No, thank you so much. I hope more people can check out The Devil Emails at Midnight, What Good Leaders Can Learn from Bad Bosses. And you can find me on LinkedIn. Feel free to DM me. I love meeting new people, which is, I think, how we met. But
It,
I love meeting new people.
yeah, I know you do. And I'm so grateful that you were here. And I will second that. Yes, you should all read The Devil Emails at Midnight.
Thank you so much.
Such a strong book and with just so many takeaways. Thank you so much for being
Oh,
here
thank you for having me.
today.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for listening today. I hope something you heard gave you a little clarity, or maybe just a sense that you're not alone in this season. The messy middle isn't something we pass through once. It shows up again and again, and each time we meet it with a bit more awareness, a bit more choice, and a lot more self-trust. If this episode resonated, follow the show so you don't miss what's next. And if someone came to mind while listening, share it with them. That's how this community grows. You'll find links and resources in the show notes and more ways that we can work together at chooseaw.com. And I'll leave you with this reminder: you are the most worthwhile project you will ever work on. So until next time, keep thriving, even in the messy middle.